Let's now look at the visuals we're going to put up on your screens and see if you can remember them. These are visuals of trains being stopped, they're set on fire, buses vandalized, public property damaged. This was the reaction across much of the country when the Modi Sarkar 2.0 had announced the Agnipath scheme in 2022. The government eventually managed to quell the protests, but the fault lines have remained. Cut to 2024, and there's a new term of the government which is set to begin with some new power equations. And it hasn't taken 24 hours since this meeting on your screen for the first test to come up for the new coalition government. Nitish Kumar's JDU, a party which is in power in Bihar, a party which has 12 MPs in the ruling government and whose 12 MPs are very important for the government to stay in power, wants a rethink of this Agnipath scheme. Listen into what a senior leader of the party, Mr. K.C. Tyagi, said today.
अग्निवीर योजना को लेकर के मतदाताओं के एक हिस्से में नाराजगी रही है। हमारी पार्टी चाहती है कि विस्तार से उन कमियों खामियों को दूर किया जाए, जिसको लेकर के जनता ने सवाल उठाए। यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड पर पार्टी के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष होने के नाते विधि आयोग के अध्यक्ष श्री चौहान को मुख्यमंत्री चिट्ठी लिख चुके हैं। हम इसके विरुद्ध नहीं है, लेकिन जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, चाहे मुख्यमंत्री हो, चाहे डिफरेंट पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हों या डिफरेंट सेक्ट्स हों, उनसे बातचीत करके इसका हल निकाला जाना चाहिए। जातिगत जनगणना को देश की किसी पार्टी ने मना नहीं किया है। बिहार ने रास्ता दिखाया है। प्रधानमंत्री ने भी ऑल पार्टी डेलीगेशन में इसका विरोध नहीं किया है। इसलिए जातिगत जनगणना समय की मांग है और हम इसको परसों करेंगे।
So it's not just Agnipath. You heard K.C. Tyagi there. There's also the caste census which the JDU wants the BJP to review. And there's also the question of a special status for Bihar. And it's not just the JDU that wants Agniveer to be reviewed. It's also Chirag Paswan of the LJP. He has claimed in an interview to a TV channel that he too is in favor for the review of the contentious scheme. Now, the BJP has been very curiously tight-lipped on this matter, and we hope to get responses from them when they join us on the panel today. The only exception comes from the Bihar Deputy Chief Minister, Samrat Chaudhary, who says that K.C. Tyagi's view is not necessarily Nitish Kumar's view. So the first response you get from the BJP is that of trying to delay what or deny what is happening. Now, for our viewers, let's just bring up what exactly was the Agnipath scheme, which is a matter of so much contention here. The Agnipath scheme was launched in 2022. You saw the reaction to that earlier on the screens. And the Agnipath scheme was meant to be a form of short service commission for youngsters from the age of 17 and a half to 21 to serve in the armed forces for 4 years. They will get, and after the period of 4 years ends, they will have a period in which 75% of them will not be retained. Only 25% will be retained. And those 25% will be continued for the next 15 years. And in the 75% of them will be given arms, will be disciplined, and were expected to contribute to nation building. Now, that's obviously is a concept which has a lot of problems already, and which is why a lot of the state governments, some especially led by the opposition at that point, had opposed them. I'm going to be joined by my panel of guests at this point. Let me go across to the people who are passionate. I'm going to be joined by RS Pathania, spokesperson of the BJP, Mayank Sinha, political advisor of the JDU. As we look at the arguments, you see the pros and cons of why the Agnipath was essential, what the government says, that it will induct tech-savvy youth for future welfare. The cons is that it will lead to the militarization of society, and that's a problem going forward. I'm going to be joined by my spokespersons representing the BJP, the JDU, and the Congress. But first, let me go across to Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who is a defense expert. Lieutenant General Kulkarni, thank you so much for joining us on Mirror Now. Before we bring in the politicians into this debate, I wanted to focus on the key big debate which has been triggered again. For the benefit of our viewers, Lieutenant General Kulkarni, can you tell what were the key problems and also what were the key advantages of the Agnipath scheme?
See, the Agnipath scheme was introduced with the purpose that the age profile, which otherwise was 32 years, would drop down by about 4 to 5 years and would be between 24 and 26. That is the first thing. Secondly, of course, much that has been said about the pension part, it does save on a cost. for a very simple purpose. And more than anything else, it was only from 1976 that the pensionable service of 15 years, that means the color service became 15 years, and the Jawan got entitled to a pension. From 65 onwards, the pension, it was the color service for 7 years, 8 years were reserved. And similarly for skill, it was 10 years of color service and 10 years reserve. So, and during the reserve, everybody got 45 rupees per month as retentive fee or salary or pension or whatever you want to call it. And he continued to be serving the forces, went for a little bit of a training for once in 2 years and stayed there as a reservist. The reservist pension used to be 2/3 of that of a sepoy's pension. So having said that as a backdrop, and at that point of time, slowly and steadily, this introduction of a color service for 15 years, that means pensionable service for all, came only in 1976. It wasn't there before. Only 35% earlier were entitled to pensions because only they could perform 15 years of color service, otherwise, or pensionable service. Otherwise, most of them left at 7 years of color service. Having said that, the Agnipath scheme was a transformative scheme with a view, with a purpose, because each one of them had, during various committees, whether it was Kargil or subsequently, and now also, that the age profile, which was 32, should drop down to around between 24 and 26, and Agnipath helped, because 17 and a half and 21. Now, what exactly happens, and just as a simple example I would give you, where the little bit of tweaking is required is the 25%. Now, 25% retention doesn't really help in a long way, and therefore the government has decided that they would. Even the Raksha Mantri has said that certain amount of reforms and look into it, for which a committee has been appointed to go into the pros and cons of it. If that is raised to 50%, it greatly helps. Firstly, because...
So, Lieutenant General Kulkarni, the reason you're highlighting the 25% retention figure, because that effectively means that every 4 years, 75% of our Agniveers will be unfortunately displaced from the force. Now, the government expects them to have disciplined and a military style of functioning here, which they expect will contribute to nation building. But the flip side is many people believe that these are also people who will have arms training and it will end up militarizing society, and that will also disincentivize the armed forces, because at the end of the day, as the Indian Army slogan goes, an Indian Army makes you a man for life. And if you're not going to be there in the Indian Army for life, what's the incentive of joining and what's the incentive of getting yourself trained to be an officer?
No, it doesn't really. First and foremost, it's not officers, it's for the men. 4 years Agniveer is for the men, both men and women. The officers is a short service commission, which is 10 years and 15 years and subsequently. That's a separate thing. But this is what we are referring to is for the men and women who can join the service at 17 and a half till 21 and serve for 4 years. Presently, of course, 25% is retention, which would be under review, which might go to 50%. If it goes to 50%, the acid test of the success of this Agnipath scheme and Agniveer is their resettlement after 4 years. If 50% are retained and the balance are to be absorbed between the paramilitary forces or the PSUs or the railways or the banks and the private industries which have come forward to accepting them, obviously, like you rightly said, these are youngsters who are determined, who are totally sincere, conscious, have all what is referred to as Josh, Jazba, Junoon, all of it in them, and of course stand for the ethos of the services of Naam, Namak, Nishan. So with having said that, these are the best lot. There is no doubt. I have personally gone and seen the first, the second, and the third lot has just joined. And the first lot will always be completing it in 2027. So we have 4 years to see and review, and since the committees are there to ensure what best could be done out of it, so we should not be in a hurry to say it should be scrapped. It should be tweaked a little bit, because the armed forces get the best. 46,000 Agniveers would be enrolled every year, out of which 40,000 are for the Army and the 6,000 are for the Navy and the Air Force is concerned. And they are, of course, the best lot which will be retained, that is 25% or 50% if tweaked and the number increases. The rest of them absorb elsewhere, like the government has been saying. And I also firmly believe the acid test of the success of the scheme lies in the resettlement of those who leave, whether it be 50% or 75%. I think it's a great scheme because it will transform the youth. Your contention that it will be militarization of the society, it isn't so. In 1939, we had 3.5 lakh army. After the World War II, it went up to 25 lakhs of the...
Lieutenant General Kulkarni, I'm sorry, I'll have to cut you short in but thank you so much for for really setting up the debate for us at this point. Lieutenant General Kulkarni, stay on with us because I also need to get in my political guests. They have been waiting patiently as well. RS Pathania, spokesperson of BJP, Mayank Sinha, member and political advisor of JDU, and Sujata Paul, spokesperson of the Congress, are joining me as well. Mayank Sinha, if you can hear me at this point, I'll come to you first. Mayank Sinha from the JDU. My first question is, because the BJP's deputy chief minister from Bihar has said that what KC Tyagi, I think we have not, I don't think we have Mayank Sinha at this point, but we'll try and get back to him. But let's go across to RS Pathania, spokesperson of the BJP. Mr.
Please.
Pathania, why is can I get the first reaction of the BJP at this point as to whether it is open to a rethink? Because the only response we've got is from Samrat Chaudhary, from the Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, who claims this is not Nitish Kumar's opinion.
Ji, sir, thanks, and a very good evening to everybody on board. With regard to the Agniveers, the Bharatiya Janata Party stand is very clear, very categorical. It gives employment to a greater number of people in India, and in a 21st century India, aiming for India at the rate of 2047, a greater number of trained people to cope up with the greater number of new challenges emerging up on pan-India basis. So we stand by it, and we stand by each and every iota of the scheme. With regard to the point put forth by, I think, the JDU spokesperson, I think a mountain is being trying to be created out of just a molehill. This is just a genuine and an honest and an instinctive expression of Janata Dal Union. So anybody can ask for, even Rajnath ji had also, the Bharatiya Janata Party defense minister had also said, if there are certain assumptions, there are certain points, we can certainly have a relook at it. There's no point of congruence, no point to sell grape wines all around, no point to create hues and cries all over. I think the Sarkar stands as it is. Sarkar stands in strong stilts.
Mr. Pathania, are you saying then?
Please,
Mr. Pathania, are you saying then that the BJP is open to review if its allies ask for? If its allies ask for it, you're open to reviewing everything, including the Agniveer scheme.
I have seen in detail the interview of Mr. KC Tyagi. See, nowhere he has put forth a demand or a sine qua non that this scheme should be reviewed. It is just an expression. I said it's an instinctive. It is an instinctive manifestation of an honest expression.
But if there is a demand which comes through tomorrow, officially from Nitish Kumarji himself, will the party be open for a review of Agnipath?
Sir, I think India is a democratic polity. India is governed by a rule of law. Right to freedom of speech and expression is available to each and every citizen of the country of India. And more so, if any Ghatak Dal of National Democratic Alliance, any partner of National Democratic Alliance ask for, so within the framework of the constructive level of debate, with the framework for a positive and for a greater effective outcome of the scheme, I think there's nothing averse in it. I started it and I ended with no need to create a mountain out of a molehill. This is nothing like it. So this scheme stands it is. This scheme virtually enthuses the spirit and as well as the emotions of the people of India. It virtually is the need of the hour. I think the army has been rechristened, the army has been refurbished. The youth also find a better chance. And I said,
but Mr. Pathania,
with new challenges of drug trafficking, terrorism also, we need a hold of new and a greater number of trained men and women across the country. This is what I mean to say, sir. Yes, Ritangshu, please.
But Mr. Pathania, the criticism that has come against the BJP precisely is that it passes through bills without taking it upon other stakeholders. जो पार्टी को अच्छी लगती है और जो पार्टी हाई कमांड को अच्छी लगती है और ठीक लगता है वही करते हैं. You just heard Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. He's a very retired and senior defense officer. He has endorsed the scheme. He has said everything is very good about the scheme. Perhaps the only thing that needs to be rethought is the 25% cap on it. Shouldn't this then be a welcome sign, sir, that you've got a new government in power? It's a new start. And Sujata Paul is back with us at this point. In fact, I'll go across to Sujata Paul. Sujata, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
One would say, we just heard, the BJP spokesperson just said that yes, if necessary, we are ready to hear all aspects of our democracy. We are ready to hear all the views of our respective allies and what they have to say. One would say that this is exactly what a healthy democracy should be. that yes, all parties' views, at least in the ruling coalition, the people who have been given the mandate should be heard, and accordingly, rules framed and laws put into place and new systems brought in. Why should the Congress have a problem with that?
Well, do I have a problem? Do you have a problem is not the point. The point is that is this a good scheme? If you remember, ex-Army Chief General Narvane, who's written in his memoirs that nobody was asked about their opinions on this, should also be considered. No, he's obviously part of the armed forces and he's held the senior position. And it is amazing how Kailash Vijayvargiya had also said that the ones who would be thrown out, literally, it's like throwing them out if you mean that you're only going to retain about 25%. And I come from Uttarakhand. So Uttarakhand, Himachal, Haryana, Rajasthan, I speak for a number of families over there. And if you remember, some days back, there were a whole lot of youngsters who had walked from Champaran to Delhi. And why did they do that? Because this scheme is unacceptable to the entire Hindi belt. So when you talk about the loss of the BJP today, this has been a major concern, major reason, because if you expect what Kailash Vijayvargiya said to happen, then this is a shocker. Because he said that he would prefer to take Agniveers in to become security guards at the BJP office. So keeping in mind what he said, it actually means that you are creating bodyguards and you will have no respect for those who we revere. Anybody who goes into the army, believe you me, because I come from Uttarakhand, I know how it feels when somebody from the army comes back home, even if it means for the holidays. So the fact is that by creating this scheme, the government has not only hit on the aspirations of our youngsters, but also try to weaken our army. Because if you have people who are going to be there for 4.5 years, and because you haven't taken in our youngsters in the last 2-3 years, other than this Agniveer scheme, what about those people who cleared their exams, who cleared their medical, and who went through the procedure which was earlier there, the recruitment process? Nothing has been done. So this is an ill thought of scheme, and that is why this is unacceptable. And when you haven't thought about what will happen to those who've already cleared the exams, and Anurag Thakur ji or Rajnath Singh ji, they've been saying ha hoga every time those youngsters ask what is happening about our recruitment. So this clearly means that nobody has actually thought about it, and all those people who are talking about how good this scheme is, I am amazed, because they are going to
get
their
in
pension,
counters to that,
these
Sujata Paul.
youngsters will not. No, and just one last point. You know, they will not be given canteen facilities. Earlier, the parents used to go and avail of the canteen facilities. And in Uttarakhand, I remember the first batch of Agniveer.
But that's precisely the point, Sujata Paul. At the end of the day, ultimately, not even the armed forces can be an unnecessary and can be a limitless source of expenditure and limitless source of perks. And one of the main reasons why the Agnipath scheme was brought in at this point was to try and reduce the pension bill, and which was burgeoning at this point. I'll let two people respond to Sujata Paul. I'll get the government's opinion as well, counter as well, and I'll also get the defense counter on this point. RS Pathania, very quickly coming to you. All of this, sir, could have been taken care of if we had a debate in Parliament over Agniveer, something that never happened to the best of my knowledge. And the argument is, the assessment is that at least now when you are directly not in a majority in terms of the BJP full majority, you will at least be asked by your allies to review and think about it and also get other opinions on board.
Ritangshu, with due respects, politics of pessimism and cynicism, it never yields positive results. So as an open society, open country, and an open political party, we are open to each and every positive suggestion. This is a scheme which has just taken off. All positive suggestions, you see, the churning is always for the rector to rise. So in this positive process of churning, all positive
Mr. Pathania, what I'll do is, I'm sorry, please forgive me for interrupting Mr. Pathania, but we've got our JDO guest finally with us, and before we lose him again, I will quickly like to go across to you. Mayank Sinha, member and political advisor of the JDU. If you can hear me, thank you for speaking to us. What does the JDU want? Does it want a revision? Does it want a review? Or is this just KC Tyagi's opinion? If you could put the record straight.
No. Our party was not opposing it outright. but our party is seeking for some review for this scheme. So our request for proper care for that their future, and there is need for some modification which was very necessary for this scheme. And we already.
What are these modifications, Mayank Sinha ji?
Hello. Hello.
What are these modifications that your party would suggest?
No.
Yes, we can.
Our suggestion for this scheme need to review. Because the future of the Agniveer was not secured, and our request for proper care for their youths. तो आपको यही हमारा है, और कुछ तो है नहीं. And the large number of youth protest against this scheme. So we need to suggest to review this scheme.
Okay, so we need to review the scheme, and that is the message could not be loud and clearer, Mr. RS Pathania. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, I'll let you have the last word. The point is, yes, I'm sure a lot of people would agree with you and would agree with the BJP as well that this is a scheme which had its heart in its right place. But if there are teething issues, which happens with every scheme, there are always, the initial plan is never the perfect one. You fine-tune it, you learn from experience, you take other people's opinions here. If a coalition government necessitates this process over perhaps a very important scheme for the armed forces, would that not be a welcome step, sir?
Definitely, Ritangshu, anything which improves and tweaks the present system, that is the Agniveer system, to improve professionalism so that the aspirations of the Agniveers are also met and professionalism of the army is also met. So both the things are very important. We need a younger profile. That, as I said, comes down by 4 to 5 years, plus at the same time, pension bill. At the same time that you're looking at the youth of this country, while the ones who join as 10th are going to become 12th, the ones who join as 12th are going to get 60%, 50% credit for their graduation exam. They're going to be youths which are good. You transform. I've seen the first, the second, and the third batch. You can't imagine the kind of training that they do at the regimental centers they're joining. None of them, I think everybody else other than them seem to be concerned. But they are not, because they know that they matter a lot. And once they join the armed forces, there is so much that the armed forces give them, and they also contribute to much and tremendous amount. And therefore, the tweaking that is required basically is to ensure that, as I said, the asset test is in the resettlement of the Agniveers who have left. 50% if absorbed, the balance 50% if they are absorbed in either the CISF or in the paramilitary forces, the central police forces, the PSUs are concerned, the banks are concerned. I think it would be a very good thing, because all of them, the morale has to be kept. So therefore, professionalism must be maintained. At the same time, the ethos of Naam Namak Nishan cannot be compromised. Combat readiness cannot be compromised. And we must get the best. The professionalism, as I said, the Jazba, Junoon has to be maintained. If the Josh is there, and all of that can be retained once anybody who joins. And right now, over 12 lakh youths have come for 40,000 recruitment. So you can see the number of youth, 10% rise from what it had for the second attempt for them. And the first ones who joined, the age increased from 21 to 23 just to absorb those who probably during the COVID times could not join. So there's a lot being done, and the government in any case will do the first batch, will pass out in 27 only, be leaving the armed forces after 25% of retention is concerned. I'm sure the reforms will come, and everybody will be a win-win situation. Nobody needs to fear. Nobody will compromise it.
Absolutely. That's a very positive note.
Paramount.
Lieutenant General Kulkarni, that's a very positive note, and I hope all our political representatives are taking heed of it. It's important to not stop reforms for the sake of obstructionism. It's important to have all opinions on board. So, Paul, unfortunately, I will not be able to take your comments because we're running out of time. But thank you so much for joining us.